My name is Emily Perez Negron, and this is the story of the Sleepy Lagoon case, prepared as part of the class Introductions to Latinx, Chicanx Histories, History 17, CH at the Claremont Colleges. The Mexican youth of Los Angeles has been credited for much racial progress amongst Mexican Americans. They were responsible for the desegregation of public schools and were credited for promoting other civil change. The Sleepy Lagoon case is an example. On August 2, 1942, Jose Diaz, a Mexican-American farmer, was found dead near the Sleepy Lagoon Reservoir in southeast Los Angeles. He passed away due to head trauma and multiple stabbings. Following the discovery of his body, at least 600 youth were rounded up. Most of the men who were arrested were of Mexican origin. A Los Angeles grand jury decided to convict 24 of the men who were arrested. 22 of the 24 men were prosecuted as legal members of the 38th Street Gang, which was a gang in the Mexican community of Los Angeles. The association of Mexicans with gangs brought to question the racist prejudice in the court system as there was no direct evidence that linked the arrestees to gang-related activities, and homicide was never legally established at the trial. The trial began on October 1942 and lasted 3 months. During these 3 months, the trial was closely examined and judged. Judge Charles W. Finkel, who handled this case, was under scrutiny for evaluating the defendants in a group, and because the defendants were not allowed to sit with their lawyers and were not allowed to have clean clothes and haircuts. This was viewed as unjust because physical appearance has an impact on the jurors' eyes. The 22 defendants were portrayed as dirty, unsophisticated gang members, even though this was not the reality. In addition, the defendants were not allowed to collaborate with their lawyers and were therefore a disadvantage to other defendants. Then, the trial came to an end on January 1943 when the 22 men were convicted of murder on different accounts. This ruling angered many who viewed this as an injustice against the Mexican immigrant community. An observer captivated by the ruling was LaRue McCormick, a member of the Communist Party and director of the International Labor Defense. She organized news conferences to bring the trial to others' attention. She also formed the Citizens Committee of Defense of Mexican American Youth. The focus of this committee was to promote civil liberties and the unity of Mexican Americans in Los Angeles, and to defend the rights of Mexican youth who were now being targeted by officials. To further draw attention to the injustices being made, McCormick recruited Shipley, a lawyer who would join the case's defense. Witnessing the judge's bias towards the defendant, Shipley worked to appeal the court's decision. During this time, the Mexican youth was antagonized in the media. Newspapers portrayed them as hoodlums and baby gangsters. This portrayal added to the already existing racism against Mexican immigrants who were not welcomed by Euro Americans. This further fueled the Citizens Committee of the Defense of Mexican Americans Youth's efforts for justice. Because committees were created and people all over the United States united to pay for the appeal of the case, on October 23, 1944, the Second District Court of Appeals of the State of California dismissed the charges. Following the retrial, the Sleepy Lagoon case was highly published in the media. The Manzanar Free Press, a newspaper ran by Japanese internment camp in Manzanar, California, covered the aftermath of the case. The editorial piece was titled Sleepy Lagoon Case and called to attention another racial issue in the United States. The editorial calls the Sleepy Lagoon case one of the gravest miscarriages of justice in California history. It highlights an injustice like those living in internment camps where minorities in the United States are not welcomed, ultimately demonstrating unity amongst minority groups who are now demanding civil rights after decades of being antagonized by the government and media. Even at a time of misfortune where Japanese were placed in internment camps and stripped away their rights, they analyzed the trial and utilized the Manzanar Free Press to speak on other racial issues to demonstrate how discriminatory the United States was. This editorial also points to the suit riots that exemplified a type of dangerous, racist attitude held by many police officers and public officials in Los Angeles. By drawing this parallel, the editorial focuses on institutionalized racism in all corners of Los Angeles, both the Los Angeles Police Department and the Los Angeles courts. Through the editorial, Japanese Americans condemned how the Los Angeles Police Department responded to the suit riots, where the authorities' initial response to the riots was largely retributive, and an emphasis was placed on arrest and punishment. Similarly, With the Sleepy Lagoon case, the Los Angeles courts responded with aggression towards the Chicano community as the judge did not focus on finding the murderer of Jose Diaz, but rather on arresting Chicanos simply for being Mexican. In both instances, Mexican Americans were alienated due to the institutionalized racism in the police, courts, and all over the United States.